You've got to have a tolerance for risk to make the
And the
leap.
appetite for it as well, I suppose.
Yeah, I was able to retire from the Oceanographic and start this. We early on we had some notable successes that really. So I don't know if you may have heard about in 2021, February 2021, this big cold outbreak in Texas. And Texas has its own energy grid. A lot of pipes froze. A lot of the infrastructure was just devastated, and the
it was
price of
crazy.
energy went through the roof.
I remember because I know the generator sales were like through the roof in Central America, right?
We didn't have any energy customers or anybody.
The power was down, right?
The power went down. The price of power went to
I remember.
many thousands per kilowatt hour. We looked at our forecast and we could see that thing coming weeks before NOAA and the weather company could. We caught it a month out, and they were still forecasting warm conditions for that time period.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Grow IT podcast. One of your hosts here, Treg King. And today we are very excited to have our guest, Mr. Ray Schmidt from Salient. And today we'll be diving a bit more into his story, what it is his company does, and then, as always, some engaging insights into the technology industry. So make sure to stick around for this one. But without further ado, Ray, welcome to the Grow IT podcast, man. Thanks for hopping on today.
Well, thank you, Treg. It's a pleasure to join you.
Ray, if we can kick things off by you just to, kind of introduce yourself and, tell us a bit about that colorful background of yours and, just a couple of snippets of your story.
Yeah, mine is probably a little unusual compared to your usual interviewees. Yeah, I'm a scientist. I'm a longtime oceanographer at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution here on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And one of my research projects was studying the global water cycle and the evaporation and precipitation patterns around the whole globe. And of course, most of it is on the ocean. And I got into it way back in the 1980s. And there had been very little progress made on it. We had kind of a general idea of what the patterns of evaporation and precipitation were on the ocean. But the exciting thing for oceanographers is that those processes of rainfall and evaporation affect the ocean surface salinity. And so we've been studying these variations in the salinity around the ocean. And there's lots of interesting climate issues that are associated with the salinity because it affects the density of the seawater.
Right.
So I got involved with NASA. I was the NASA Salinity Science team leader from 2006 to 2016.
Wow.
And during that time, NASA launched 2 salinity sensing satellites. And just before that, the Europeans had launched a salinity sensing satellite. And so that gave us the opportunity to look at ocean salinity variations in much greater detail. We could look at, week-to-week variations, whereas before we just had a kind of a general pattern of areas of evaporation, like under the Bermuda High are salty, and areas of precipitation, up around the England or Ireland, it's a bit fresher. And so we had these general patterns, but these satellites and plus a lot more buoy technology that we've put into the ocean over the years have given us a lot more information on how the ocean salinity changes with time and space. And so in the course of this research, I had this bright idea that if some patch of ocean gets salty from, gets saltier from one year to the next, that means there's been more evaporation, because that evaporation precipitation are what changes the ocean surface salinity.
All right.
And so I reasoned that it must rain more somewhere else. What goes up must come down. So
let's come down.
So we started trying to figure out, we'd done these projects, both ship-based and satellite-based, looking at these changes in ocean salinity. And so we start looking, where does that water end up when we do have an evaporation event? And we discovered that changes in the ocean surface salinity were really useful for predicting rainfall on land at long time scales. Now, you know, your average weather report we get from NOAA or the European Union, European Center, it will go out about 10 days, and you know, you can say, oh, it's going to rain next Tuesday or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But what we found, it was possible to look at the ocean surface salinity, say off the US East Coast in the springtime, and give a good prediction of the precipitation in the upper Midwest the following summer. So this gave us a long range predictive capability. It's called seasonal prediction if you're 3 months ahead. And so that was exciting. We wrote a bunch of papers on it, you know, over well, we kind of got really into it about a decade ago.
Yeah.
And wrote a bunch of papers, but you know, it was a new idea. The meteorological community seemed to think it was crazy. You know, I thought it was logic, but there were surprising things. You know, what gave us the long lead time in predictability. So in 2016, we published some papers. Still didn't have any funding for it, so we'd, you know, done the work on, you know, fellowships and things. And what came up is an opportunity to enter a rainfall forecasting contest for the United States West. Yeah. And it offered big prize money. And I found out about this a couple of days before Christmas in 2016. And then at Christmas time, the whole family had gathered. And I have three sons. The youngest two are engineers, computer and mechanical. And they've been playing computer games since they were 12 years old, you know. And it turned out they were using a machine learning to play one of those multiplayer online games, World of Warcraft or something. And so the light bulb went off on my head, and I said, well, if you guys have the machine learning experience, we've been using machine learning in our paper, in our publications. I said, I found out about this new contest. There's big prize money. Quit playing games. We'll enter this contest, and we can share the
spoils.
Share the spoils, yeah. So I gave them a lot of data to train on, and they trained up what's called a fully connected neural network. And it was nothing but ocean data. I said, I've got this new crazy idea. No one else is going to try it. Let's try it. So we were competing against academics, you know, experts on El Nino or.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you know, the usual sorts of climate indices and private companies that were using the NOAA and European forecast. And so we entered this contest in April of 2017. It was a lot of work. Every 2 weeks for a whole year, you had to produce forecast for precipitation and temperature at 3 and 4 week lead, 5 and 6 week lead, two different forecasts. And then you would get scored on it continuously, you know, either 2 weeks or 4 weeks later. So we entered the contest in April. 1 month later, I was organizing a big meeting in Woods Hole. I had 100 people in the room. We were talking about salinity. And the morning of that week, Thursday morning, I got an email from the contest runners, and they said, first scores are in. Go check. Go check. And I just forwarded it to my son because I had to introduce speakers and all this stuff. Well, I came back at lunchtime and had an email from my son, and he said, hey, Dad, check it out. We're way ahead of everybody else.
What?
And lo and behold, we stayed ahead the whole contest. It was a fun thing, because you
Yeah.
would submit our forecast on a Monday, and then on the Thursday would find how we had done
To track. Yeah.
for 4 and 6 weeks earlier. Anyway,
Yeah.
we stayed ahead the whole time, and we walked away with a prize of $250,000.
You are you're kidding me. My word.
So
Ray,
that was
what a
exciting.
story, man. What a story.
That was exciting and a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
we got some local publicity where one of the
This is
local
brilliant.
TV stations weather team interviewed us,
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
got approached by some investors in Boston,
Yeah.
and they said, hey, this could be really valuable
Yeah,
for
it could be
agriculture.
something.
Uh,
Yes.
in South Africa, you almost ran out of water in Cape Town a couple of years ago.
Yes, you're quite right. We nearly had a day zero.
Yeah, nearly. Are you in Cape Town or?
No, no, I'm actually up way north, Johannesburg side. Obviously, well, our business is in the States, but myself now. So no, up north, Johannesburg side, yeah.
Yeah. So we my sons and I talked to them for a while, and
Yeah.
so my sons are engineers, they're not meteorologists and stuff. And I was able to convince my last PhD student in the Woods Hole MIT program. He had sort of watched us with interest throughout the year, and he had just finished his PhD, and he wanted to join us.
Yeah.
So the four of us formed a company, and in that fall, we start paying him kind of out of our winnings,
Yeah. To get
and
things going.
he and my sons very quickly, in a couple of months, built a great little predictor. Well, it was a web page, a viewer, where we could look at our predictions at different time scales and whatnot. They did a great job in the early days, and then I went to visit a one of the companies that would engage with a little bit, and I went to their weather team and gave them a demonstration of our model. And by the end of the year, we had a nice size subscription contract with them.
Yes.
And and then we picked up some other business with a company in Brazil. And the first company there I mentioned is a big international agricultural supply company. And what they would use these for is to advise their farmers, is it going to be a wet year or a dry year, which, what crop to plant, when to apply certain pesticides. Certain pesticides are activated with different levels of moisture, things like that. So they really needed these good rainfall estimates.
Yes.
And so that we got the prize money in 2019, and that was early in 2020. But shortly thereafter, the pandemic set in, COVID, and we had various smaller contracts with some energy companies and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I think the pandemic really put the brakes on a lot of progress.
Right.
It seemed like it got much harder to make a deal. Companies were afraid of a recession. They got very conservative. So things slowed down there for a while. And I realized that my skills were in, writing papers and the big scientific ideas. And while I was happy to do what was necessary to run a business, I wasn't really good at
Yeah.
marketing, all the
Sure.
things that are necessary. So I think I'm a pretty good judge of people. I've managed groups, academic groups at
Yeah.
my career at Woods Hole, and basically at a place like Woods Hole, you're constantly selling yourself. So it was like a scientific, I'm a scientific entrepreneur, if not a business entrepreneur. So I hired on we searched a while for a good person to come in and be the CEO, to do the business end of it. And hired a great guy named Matt Stein. And he came in, and we decided probably the best tactic was to raise some more investor money and then hire a really strong team of, PhD physicists and machine learning experts, and more meteorologists and oceanographers. And so that's what we did. We were very successful at raising a funding round. I was also able to connect us with the Gates Foundation. And they were interested in helping farmers in East Africa. So we got a nice grant from Gates.
And he's big in Africa.
Yes, they're really trying to help out, in Uganda and in Kenya and those areas in East Africa. So we're working with Gates, helping out farmers there. And we've built up a really strong team. And, the nice thing is, great thing for us, I mean, it's kind of curious. Right now, you hear a lot about machine learning and AI being applied to it. But all of it, nearly all of it, is just finding kind of a cheaper way to do traditional forecast. Now, traditional dynamical forecasts are done on big machines, days, and they run a model that is integrating all the equations of motion for the atmosphere and the ocean. And they have a limit. They go out about 14 days, and then chaos sets in, and they're over reliant on initial conditions, and the forecasts really fall apart after about 14 days. Well, most of the noise, most of the publicity you hear about, Google's gotten into it, NVIDIA, and they're all bragging about how they can do a 14-day forecast
prediction
much cheaper. I said, okay, well, that's great, but you haven't provided anything new to the market or to the public. And the public is used to getting those 14-day forecasts for free. So you can't build a business about just doing something cheaper. I mean, hopefully NOAA and EC will, European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecast, hopefully they'll just, move over to machine learning and make their forecast less expensive. But what we've been doing, and the research for over a decade, is actually working hard on what's called subseasonal to seasonal forecast. That's a difference. So that's beyond 2 weeks. That's weeks 2 to 5 ahead, and then months at the 6 months ahead. And those are really important for agriculture.
Definitely.
And energy and insurance, even supply chain. I can give you some examples in some of those. So the other aspect of it, and so in addition to building a really good team, which I'm very proud of our team, we're up to 16 people or so. We've got a really strong business team, but also really smart young machine learning experts, all PhDs. And it's putting that team together was very satisfying. And we're trying to build the right company culture so that people want to stay. And I think, our mission is, for me anyway, I want to solve problems. That's
but
where
I mean,
get my kid.
Clearly what you mentioned now, I mean, just listening while you're talking now, just from a value standpoint of what this technology, because you guys, it seems like you're evolving the whole time, right? And I can fully understand from a value perspective, maybe it sounds like your biggest market, right, is on the agricultural side and then the energy side as well, right? And I can fully understand the value of that because that must be, with this type of technology, those businesses can make, such better informed decisions that's going to save them millions of dollars. And so I fully understand it. It's just so interesting for me that this came from, like you mentioned, way back. It started out where you were from the marine, from the ocean side,
Yeah,
all the way to assisting companies in maybe the agricultural sector. That is it's so profound. I must
yeah.
say I haven't heard a story like this in a long time. Um
Well, yeah, I think I don't know about the rest of the world, but
yeah.
in the US, the way science is funded,
Yeah,
uh, it's very disciplinary. So there's a funding stream for meteorologists and a funding stream for oceanographers and a
yeah, yeah,
funding stream for hydrologists and glaciologists. But all those four different disciplines are part of the global water cycle. And uh, it it often frustrated me. And I would go to big meetings that were advertising to be about the global water cycle, but all they were interested was a rainfall on the Mississippi. And I'd go to them and say, do you realize that the flow of the Mississippi is only 1% of the rainfall on the Atlantic Ocean? If you're going to
yeah.
talk about the global water cycle,
All
why aren't you
stuck on the
talking about the
Mississippi.
ocean? Uh,
Yeah.
and and we could, for a long time, we couldn't get any funding to
Mm,
use this new salinity technique for
mm.
forecasting because the meteorologists didn't believe in it. So it's just funny the way science is funded. I think
Yes,
we're
definitely.
siloed. We don't talk to each other. So
Yo, man, I feel like you should stay on this podcast the whole day, but we're running out of time. I just wanted to ask you from a founder perspective, right? And you rightfully mentioned that the processes that you guys got through to get the right team, on
hmm.
board to take this business further, right? And it's and like you mentioned, it seems like it's quite very much high qualified people that forms part of your team. Um, Having said that, in your opinion, Ray, what type of mindset, from your opinion, is needed to be like a successful founder of a business?
Well, you've got to have a tolerance for risk,
Sure.
to make the
And the
leap.
appetite for it as well, I suppose.
Yeah, I was able to retire from the Oceanographic and start this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh, yeah, but we early on we had some notable successes that really. So I don't know if you may have heard about in 2021, February 2021, there
mm,
was this big cold outbreak in Texas, and Texas
yeah,
has its own energy grid, and
yeah,
a lot of pipes froze. Uh, a lot of the infrastructure was just
yeah.
devastated, and the
Yeah, it was
price of
crazy.
energy went through the roof.
Yeah,
And
I remember because I know the generator sales were like through the roof in Central America, right? So I
yeah,
remember
and so, well, we didn't have any energy customers or
but the
anybody
power was down, right? The power was down.
the power went down,
Serious,
the
there
price
were
of
serious
power
power cuts.
went to
Yeah, I remember.
many thousands per kilowatt hour. And
Mm.
but we looked at our forecast and we could see that thing coming
Yeah.
uh, weeks before NOAA and the weather company could. And we caught it a month out, and they were still forecasting warm conditions for that time period, and so nobody was prepared for it. But if you owned some oil wells and you knew you had to cut, there's a lot of water involved in oil extraction, but if the pipes freeze, then everything goes to
Yeah.
hell. So
Yeah.
anyway, they could have prepared for that. Another example
Yeah.
was this when Russia invaded Ukraine in in 22,
Hmm.
that summer, the price of natural gas went really high. It went to $9 per million BTUs or whatever the metric is.
Yeah.
However, that summer, we were forecasting a very warm winter for both the US and Europe. So we
Yes.
knew that the demand would fall. But at that time, everybody was hoarding natural gas. And in fact, in LNG, we get a lot of liquefied natural gas here in New England from
Yeah.
the Gulf of Mexico. Well, Europe was also trying to hoard LNG because the pipelines had been blown up and because Russia was cutting off gas. So the price had gone sky high. Well, that September, I went to an energy meeting and I told everybody, hey, it's going to be a warm winter. So
Yeah.
it'd be a good time to short natural gas. Well, we didn't have any customers, but other big companies there's a hedge fund, Citadel. They knew
Yes.
to short natural gas, and price went from $9 to $2, and they made a bundle.
I just
They're now like
they
the
must have
biggest hedge
made
fund in the
good
world.
buck.
Oh,
Yeah.
many billions.
My
And we're
word.
thinking, why aren't we in the trading business?
Yeah, I just wanted to. Yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be some couple of JVs coming up, man. I mean, this is excellent. Tell me, Ray, where can the listeners get hold of you guys?
Yes, we have a nice website. It's at salientpredictions.com, www.salientpredictions.com.
Com.
And
Lovely.
one of the things because we've been invested in this for a while now, and a lot of people are claiming to have skill. Well, there's a couple of things about that. There's a lot of ways to measure skill, and we use something called cumulative rank probability score. There are simpler metrics like hit rate and stuff like that. Well, those are easy to gain, and working with Gates, we're trying to establish the best way to score things. The other aspect I just wanted to mention, we build up a lot of decision support tools so that
Yes.
we can give a company an alert. If they have a plant that is very sensitive to low temperature, 3 days of below freezing temperatures or something like that, we can give them an alert and say, well, we think this freeze is coming 5 weeks out, so you better prepare. And we can set up alerts like that. So we have a beautiful website and a system to help companies make informed decisions.
Informed decisions. I just thought about that as well. I fully agree. My word, this has been so interesting, Ray. I'm so glad you came on today, man. This has been great. I can fully understand, out of that value that you guys offer as a business, the way that you guys have put your team together and obviously evolving the whole time and keeping up with the times, right? So, I need to first off compliment you, and second off, wish you all the best of luck for the business going further. Growing and scaling and having fun. Looks like you're having a lot of fun. So, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate it. Thanks, Ray.
Very good. Very nice to meet you and enjoyed the interview.
All the best.
Yes.